Welcome to the February 2026 meeting of the Houston County Historical Society. If you would, please silence your phones. And if Ms. Martin will lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have the sign-in sheet. I think everybody's signed in, but if you haven't, let me know and we will get you on board with that. First off, let's do the meeting minutes. Anybody have any questions, corrections, additions, changes? Melissa does a good job.
The mailed out minutes didn't go out till Friday, so I couldn't get to the post office.
Well, sorry about not knowing whether to come to the meeting tonight or not. We said if it snowed, or if the school was out, we wouldn't have the meeting. But the school was out, but we're having our meeting, but it was not snow related, so I'm glad you're all here safely, thank you. If there's no changes to the minutes, we will deem the minutes approved. Leah, do you have a treasurer's report for us?
Yeah, I do. We had income of $134.05. We had expenses of $245.47. We paid for the Christmas meal and then for the Lucille Clements doll. So at the end of January, we had $6,258.16 in our money market. Yesterday, we had trouble getting out, and yesterday I went and I opened a $3,500 CD, and it's at 3.25% interest rate. Our big one with $10,581 is at 3.5%. So, I mean, it's better than the 1% or something at the money market, but it is what it is. In our artifacts allocation account, we have $235.59. And on our archives allocation, we have $318. That's it.
Is that a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion?
Thank you.
All righty. After the treasurer's report, the membership dues. It's February, we'll get membership dues. The advantages of having a membership is you get the minutes and keep you up to date on everything that's going on. Which brings me to the fact of our schedule for this year. As you know, there will be no meeting in March. We support the Irish celebration and try not to have a conflict with them. The April meeting will be Phil Brown discussing the Ben Brown family, which most everybody in this room is some way related to that bunch. In May, we have Sid Vinson on Erin's historic buildings. In June, we'll have a joint meeting with Stewart County. And I printed their newsletter. They mentioned their June meeting, but they haven't got their programs on board yet. I think they're having a meeting this month to get all that going on. If y'all would like to see a copy of the Stewart County newsletter, I've got that as well. And after June, for July, we have America 250. So we got a few months to plan on what we're going to do to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States. We have August, September, and October open. November will be the archives meeting,
Hopefully at the Armory.
at the new building, and December, our Christmas dinner. And does anybody else have any new business they want to discuss, or old business? Otherwise, we will let Melissa do her archives update, please.
Hello, everybody. Archives update. We're there Monday through Friday. Please come even though you see construction. This morning we had jackhammering, which was extremely loud, but we got through it today. Were you there today?
Oh,
yeah. And so please come visit us in the archives. We get donations almost on a daily basis. And today, we didn't get necessarily a donation, but we got kind of a, I found this and here you get it. And so now, but I've gotten someone who's gonna come and get it because the person who got this wants to remain anonymous, but they were cleaning out a house here in Erin and they found a piece of concrete that whoever lived in the house was using for a step, either step up into the house or something. And it was a headstone. But before you get too upset, I think it was, I wouldn't use it for a step, but I think it was deliberate because the gentleman who it belonged to was buried in the Meyer Cemetery in Palmyra. And when I looked him up and I looked on Find a Grave where you can see pictures of headstones, he died in 1934 and his wife died in 1956. And you can see that they have a double headstone. So I think the family probably pulled that one of him up alone and replaced it with that, but you still don't want to throw something like that away. So anyway, so I contacted a gentleman who works with the cemeteries in Montgomery County. He's going to work with me. He's going to come pick it up and probably take it to the cemetery and maybe put it there somewhere. So you never know what's going to walk in the archives. We have an artifact fund with the Historical Society, and that allows me, when things come across eBay or online auction sites or even things local that we can purchase, I get to do that. And so this last month I was able to purchase a picture postcard of the Danville Post Office. So we actually have this photograph, but the one we have is not very good. So I purchased this one. It was under $10 because it's a much better copy of the Danville Post Office. So I'll have it up here if y'all want to look at it. And then it got me to thinking because I've actually documented all of the post offices that were in Houston County over our 155 years. We just celebrated our 155th year being a county. So I wanted to tell you those in case you didn't know we had more than just a couple of post offices. So we had 13 post offices over our history so far. And I have documentation for all of these post offices. There was the Danville Post Office, which is this postcard. There was a post office at Ellis Mills. There was the Erin Post Office, which we have. It has changed locations over time. There was a post office at Griffin, where the school Griffin Chapel. There was a post office in McKinnon. There was a post office in Magnolia. In the Magnolia area, they had a post office. There was a post office at Metcalf. Now, there was a Metcalf school. So I'm not sure where Metcalf, does anybody know where Metcalf in the county was? It would be a very small, if it even exists anymore, community.
Well, there's a Metcalf Drive here in Erin.
Yeah. No, this is a little community called Metcalf.
Oh.
There was a little community called Omega. They had a post office. Silvertop. There was a Silvertop school, and they had a post office in Silvertop. The Stewart Post Office, which we still have, Tennessee Ridge Post Office, we still have. White Oak had a post office. I didn't know if you knew that, Susie. And Yellow Creek had a post office. So think about all of those post offices. And the reason they had all these post offices is because you think back in the day, they didn't have cars. They had to travel by buggy and by horses. And the train made it very easy for them to have all of these post offices. Because if you've ever looked at the photograph of back here when they had the train, there's a big tall pole with an arm that kind of comes out like this, and that was the mail grabber. The trains would speed through here, and they would put out the mail bag, and it would go by there and we'd grab it from them. They didn't stop. So, and so that's why there's all these little posts. So I'm constantly looking for especially postcards that have been used with a postmark of one of our post offices. I don't have one for Ellis Mills, Griffin, I got one for Magnolia, Metcalf, Omega. There's several of them I don't have, so I'm constantly looking for those postmarks. So if you have letters, postcards in your family history, in your records, even if you don't want to donate it, let me copy it. It's got a post office mark for one of these post offices. So, other than that, we are still, cross fingers, going to be moving to the Armory somewhat, I hope, this year. I am already making plans of how we're going to arrange things in our space, because our space is literally from here probably to the front door, maybe a little further, and it's just one big long space. I mean, it's not broken up into rooms or anything. I have a separate office, and we have the vault up there. They had a vault where they kept all their weapons because they were the National Guard. So that's where some record storage will be. But so we'll have kind of a blank slate when it comes to putting together the museum. So we're going to more than double our space, so that'll be good for more exhibits, displays. We'll be able to move, many of you may or may not know, back when they tore down the old post office in Stewart to build the new post office in Stewart, inside the old post office was the front counter and the post office boxes. And it was handmade, it was very old. And when they tore down that building, the Stewart Community Center saved that. And it stayed in the Stewart School, the Stewart Community Center, for decades, 20, 30 years, until now the building is falling to pieces. And I was called upon and said, do you want this? And so it is now set up at the Houston County Fairgrounds. So if you go to the fair or have any event there, you can see it. But once we move to the Armory, we're going to be able to move the post office to the Armory. And it'll be on full display. We have a lot of documents, memorabilia, paraphernalia. And one thing I ran across that I'm going to do, I was reading in some newspapers, I'm constantly reading newspapers for news about Erin. And a really famous person came through this area, was known to be in this area. Now I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Very famous in the 1930s. He was, wow. Anyway, so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of his wanted posters off the internet, and I'm going to put it in our post office, because they used to put wanted posters in the post office. So yeah, so that's all I've got. Like I said, I'm always encouraging people to donate stuff. Even if you're not ready to donate it, bring it by and let me scan it, especially photographs. Many of us still have photographs in our attics and closets that not only have people in them, but they have buildings and things in the background that are not here anymore. And so just like the courthouse is changing now. So yesterday was the first day, and I've already been taking pictures to document the change that's going on there, because in 100 years, people are going to say, well, when did they do that? What did it look like before they added this? You know. So I'm already documenting that. So just remember to research your family and tell their stories too, because everyone needs to have their story told. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for our program. Miss Gina McMillan is going to talk to us about the quilts. I'll let her introduce herself. Probably most of you know her, but turn it over to Gina.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Gina McMillan. I was born here, raised here, out on Bateman Branch. My parents are Billy Jim and Janelle Hughes. And my mother was an avid quilter, as was her mother. Mom did everything by hand. I do not. That is definitely a lost art. If you have quilts at your home that your family members have made, that have, especially those that have been done by hand, cherish those. How many of you, and I want to see a show of hands, have slept under a homemade quilt at your grandmother's, your mother's house, your great aunt's house? Yeah. There was a lot of love that went into those stitches. So just keep that in mind. So just a little history about quilting. Quilting has a long and cozy history. It's part practical, part artistic. And from what I understand, Miss Connie Nance was very artistic in her quilting and has some beautiful work that she's done, that her family has. Quilting goes back to your ancient Egypt. From what I understand too in reading, there are carvings that show quilts in these carvings. And basically, at that time, all it was two pieces of fabric that were tacked together or sewn together. And they used this for warmth. A lot of it was armor padding, and some of it became ceremonial clothing as well. Your Middle East and in Asia, then they got really fancy with their silks and that kind of thing. But in medieval Europe, They also used it under their armor, and it was called a gambeson, Gambeson. Later evolved into bed coverings, and that was for the wealthy. Then quilting arrives in Europe in the 14th to the 16th century. A lot of these were whole cloth quilts, so they didn't piece them, but they had these whole pieces of cloth, front and back, that they either quilted by hand or they tacked. And I also heard something else referred to as string quilts, where it was tacked. There's also, they had elaborate stitch patterns that showed wealth and craftsmanship. Bed quilts were luxury items. Again, they were often made of silk, wool, and linen. And you know, most of our quilts today are made out of 100% cotton. For those of us that are quilting now, that's what we say. We like for it all to be cotton. And myself, I want cotton fabric, I want cotton batting, which is the inside part, cotton back. I don't mind so much about the thread if it has some polyester in it, but I like all of it cotton. It washes better, it's softer, it feels better to the touch. Quilting arrived in the Americas along about the same time in the 14th to 16th century. Colonial America, at that time fabric was scarce. Quilts were practical, so you used what you had. You used scraps and you used worn clothing to make these quilts. And then they passed down their skills through generations. And I also read somewhere where it said that in a quilting bee, which I know they had barn raisings and built houses and stuff, but in the quilting bees, that a quilt could be made in a day. And I thought, that's a lot of hands, because they cut all that with a pair of scissors, and they made that in a day's time. And you know, how much daylight did they have? But anyway, just a little bit of information there. Then in the 19th century, it's said is the golden age of quilting. I think at that time, that's when textile mills had moved in, cotton was made more affordable, and that's when they started making distinctive patterns. Before, almost everything was just a square that they were able to put together. Some of the popular patterns at that time, and are still popular today, are the log cabin. And this is a square of log cabin. And a little bit later, I'll get into a little bit of history about this. It fascinates me. I hope it does you too, but all this fascinates me. So anyway, another thing is a 9-patch and a 4-patch. And basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. Your quilt was made up of 4 patches, or your block was made up of 4 patches, or it was made up of 9. Quilts marked life events like birth, marriages, migrations, even political causes, like abolition. And again, that's another story that I'm going to tell you here with log cabin quilt. African American traditions, notably what's called the G's bend quilts, they started using bold colors and with cultural memory about them. These were sometimes used in fundraising, suffrage movements, and wartime relief. And then during the Great Depression, I was amazed at the things that people put inside their quilts during that time. You know for certain that they had to use what they had and be very inventive, be very creative. I read where they used scraps of flax, scraps of wool, even straw, and things like that. And that's when quilting started to be really close, really small, close stitches. Because if you had pieces of stuff, you had to have a way to keep it intact and keep it all in one place instead of it being down in one corner. So then in the 20th century, we moved on there. And at that time, quilting declined an awful lot because there were factories that were making blankets. So folks didn't do much then until you moved into the 1930s with the Great Depression. Then in the 60s and the 70s, it started coming back with a lot of craft movements. and renewed appreciation for folk art, feminism, that kind of thing. And then today, when we move into modern quilting, we have slotted rulers that we use. We use rotary cutters that make it so much easier. You can cut through 4 pieces of fabric. We even have this thing called an quilt that will cut you 6 pieces at one time. But we have those things instead of a pair of scissors and maybe a piece of paper. Maybe. And that's another thing too, when I think of paper, they also put paper inside their quilts. That was just mind-boggling to me. But anyway, quilts tell our story, they tell our history, they tell our culture. But before I get off on another tangent, I want to talk to you about the log cabin. Now, I've made several log cabins, but somehow or other, I don't have any of those. I had to borrow one tonight. That was a log cabin. I did not piece it, but I just wanted you to see what it looks like. And when you make this square, they tell you to do lights and darks. The light side is daytime, the dark side is night. The center, traditional center for a log cabin are 3 different colors, but mainly red and yellow. Red is a symbol for the home and family. It meant warmth and safety, stability. Yellow was for the light. And then during abolition, they started using a black center. The black center signified if you knew somebody that had a log cabin quilt that had a black center in it, sometimes they would hang them on their clotheslines, across their porch rail, in their window. But if you saw someone with that and you were a slave seeking asylum through the Underground Railroad, these folks were part of the Underground Railroad and could help you reach safety and to get you out of slavery. So, anyway, again, my favorite pattern, very popular today. So, with all that being said, I just want to talk to you about some of the quilts that we have here. This quilt was made in the early 1900s. I bought it. The pattern is a flower basket, and then there's a small 9-patch in it. And you can see this quilt, not everything matches. A lot of it does, but not all of it does. It's not all the same color. And they must have run out of binding because there's a part that's orange here. And this quilt is what's called a summer quilt. It has no lining in it. So, again, I asked when I bought this, I talked to the lady. She told me all she could tell me about it was that she purchased it in East Nashville and that it was made in the early 1900s. This quilt is an Irish chain. And this was given to me by a girl that I worked with. My last job before I retired was with the state. And her name is Kate. She was from Illinois, and she was raised by her grandmother, and all her grandmother did was quilt. So Kate helped her grandmother put her quilt in the frames. And we're talking the long wooden frames that sat on horses, where everything was done by hand, you tacked it to the frame, all that good stuff. So, and but her grandmother made this, her great-grandmother made this, not her grandmother that raised her. And she brought this into work one day, and she said, I want you to have this. And I said, I can't take that, no. She said, no, Miss Gina, you don't understand. She said, I have one, my daughter Autumn has one, and all I do is roll this up, put it in a pillowcase, and I take it out once a year and wash it. She said, I want somebody to have it that appreciates it. So again, this was made in the early 1900s as well. She couldn't give me the exact year, but after talking to her aunt, that's what she came up with. Now, this quilt is not an old quilt, but it's made with original 1940s flour sacks. And I was at a quilt shop in Pembroke, Kentucky, called Country Lane Quilts, and it's run by a Mennonite lady. And she has a lot of quilts there. And every time I walked by this quilt, I touched it. And I said to my Aunt Carol, she was with me, I said, I don't understand why I can't walk by that quilt and not touch it. But there's something, she said, I can tell you why. She said, it reminds you of Mama's dresses, which was my grandmother. So, there you go. So, I have the quilt. Now, this quilt is Jacob's ladder. And it's old. And I think it's been well loved. It was in my mother's house when she was a child, and their house burned. And the only thing that was saved out of the house was, and Mama supposedly got the stuff, was this quilt, a dipper, and my grandfather's wallet. Now, she could never explain why she took those things out, but she was a kid. She was 7 or 8 years old. And this is what she remembered. So, in 1980, my grandmother, her mother, did her best to replicate this quilt. And this is it.
And what's the pattern called again?
Jacob's ladder. Okay, now this is just, I don't know what this pattern is, it's a little bit of everything. It's got some flying geese in it, it's just, and I acquired it somewhere, couldn't tell you where, but it's old, it's got old fabrics in it, you can tell by looking at them. And it's been well loved as well.
Hold it up so we can see.
Those are the best kind.
That's
Beautiful.
Yeah, lovely.
And the next one here too has some history. I worked at the bank years ago at Aaron Bank and Trust Company. One winter, they were having a sale. It had snowed, and they were having a sale down at a little white frame house that was right across from where the Nazarene Church is now. The house is not there anymore. And I thought, when I bought this, Miss Largent, which I know they always referred to her as Largent, she was Nelma Dixon's mother. I thought this was hers. It was just a quilt top. Had some bad places in it, but after I talked to Linda Brocci and then I talked to Judy, we came to the conclusion that Miss Florence Settle quilted this, or pieced it, and my mother repaired it and quilted it. And this is a grandma's flower garden. I love this pattern as well, but no way am I doing this.
Yeah, that's my favorite pattern.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
have one with me.
and I have another one that I bought at a sale. So, and this one, I'm really not sure. Do you think Grandma made this? I never knew my grandmother Hughes to quilt, but she sewed all the time. Now, she could embroidery.
Oh, she did quilt.
Yeah, well, this was hers. Well, see, I don't remember. You would, but I don't remember. But this was hers. As you can see, it's been well loved as well. And I try to take good care of it. I don't mind them being touched, because I think anybody that makes this and puts this much time and effort, they want it to be well loved. This, and I know what this pattern is, but I had to buy it. This is called a granny square. Don't know why. Just a granny square. It's all done by hand. This one's also done by hand. I don't know what this pattern is.
That's like a windmill,
Mm-hmm.
or a
It
a
does,
Dutch windmill.
but I know that's not what it is.
Oh.
But for the life of me, I can't think of the name. Bow tie is pretty self-explanatory, you know. This is all hand done. And this, so I don't mess up the name of it, this is Grandma's engagement ring. It's all hand done, and see, they got really fancy there. It's got a scalloped edge on it.
I've always heard that one called Dresden slate.
Well, it is a Dresden plate, except this makes it Grandma's engagement ring.
Good.
That right there.
Uh-huh.
I thought that too,
Yeah.
until I looked it up to make sure of what it was. And this is an applique poinsettia.
Mhm.
This I acquired at an auction or a fundraiser, and it was made by a lady in Georgia who was Miss Polly Fazel's ex-mother-in-law. So, but I love it. And I love that not everything about it matches, and that's what I like about this old stuff, because so much of our new stuff, it all matches. Again, this one, and this is, you can tell, this is some of your old cotton batting. You can feel of it and tell, you know, but it's all done by hand. A double wedding ring. It's a beautiful quilt with scalloped edges. I have a great aunt. Her name was Georgie Finch Edlin, and she did this.
That's beautiful.
Another applique tulip. My mother did this. All of this is done by hand. The ladies at the senior center quilted it. I found this quilt top after my mom passed away, and I had them finish it for me. I don't know, this is what's called a yo-yo quilt.
Called a what?
Yo-yo.
Yo-yo.
Uh-huh. And it's, sometimes you'll find them where they have a lining behind them, but they're never quilted. They're just gathered in the center there where it draws up and makes that yo-yo, and then they put them together. They have a little apparatus that you can make them with now, but used to, they just cut out circles and just stitched around the top of it.
Like flowers.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, and this, I wanted to show you a log cabin because I like it so well. But this is a log cabin. And you can see it's got your light and your dark sides. Your center's non-traditional, but that's okay too. But a log cabin quilt, if your colors are put together correctly, light and dark, there are like 75 or 80 different patterns that you can put it together and make these designs. All original. Do you have a question? Oh, you're counting.
I'm counting.
Okay. Sorry. And this is also an Irish chain that my mother made. It's all done by hand. And she made me this roughly in 1987, 88, something like that. And she also did this one. Not my favorite quilt. I don't like cats. But they're painted on here. Her and the ladies at the senior center did this. And this was raffled off, and I was the proud winner. So I'll cherish it because I love quilts. I'm just not going to look at the cat. Some of you too make memory quilts. Memory quilts are big now, where they're made with folks that have passed away, their clothing. Also bears as well, but this is a memory quilt that's made out of my dad's shirts that my Aunt Carol had made for myself, and my brother has one. as well.
Can we see more of that one?
Sure.
Yeah, I love the sleeve.
I like the sleeve up there, yeah.
And the pocket. Yeah, that's neat.
I've seen them with the pocket, but I've never seen them leave the sleeve on like
Yeah,
that.
neat.
And this is another one that my mother made, and I think she just used every piece of stuff she had left. Because this is part of the quilt that she made for me there, and so, anyway, but again, it was a top that I found that I had quilted after she passed away. This one is also her work. This is called an 8-point star. Now, I really like this, because first of all, it doesn't all match.
Can you show us more of that?
Absolutely.
We have quilters in the room.
Yeah, or lovers of quilts. That is really pretty.
And I'm fine, more than fine with you coming up
Yeah.
and looking at them too.
I'm always interested in where they put the color and repeated the color,
Yeah,
because it's
well, I would be willing to bet she didn't,
Think
she
about
just
that.
put it together.
It doesn't look like that though. It really looks like it was put together some thought.
yeah.
And 4-patch, I made this one. Yeah, I was like, when I started gathering these up, I thought, I don't really have that many that I've made. What have I done with them? But anyway, yeah, and I love red and black. So I've
Now
made
show us
several.
more of that one too. Yeah.
And
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
neat.
yeah, I
It's really
loved this
pretty.
too. And I was telling Jackie that when this backing is 45 wide, it's not 108 wide, so you know, it's not wide enough to be on the back of this quilt. And so I'm like, I have to sew it together in the center. And I sewed, because I was bound and determined that that little stripe going down through there was gonna be exactly the same width. Well, after I ripped it out 5 times, I didn't care whether it was the same width or not, it was going on there the way it was.
Yeah.
And this is an applique quilt, a baby quilt that I made. And with a 9-patch and the ducks. So another one I made that I managed to keep.
You've donated a lot of quilts.
I have, and I didn't realize how much evidently until I started working to get. And as I'm bringing them out of the cabinets and stuff, Mike is like, that's enough. That's enough. Don't you think that's enough? No, that's not. And then this is a disappearing star. And you have to open it up to see. Here, let me take it here. But it goes from dark.
How about if I help you hold it up?
Thank you. But if you see here, it starts up in this corner and it starts going down where your stars disappear. And Annette Cole, the extension agent that was here, she made this quilt.
Of course, you really need tall people to hold this thing.
That's not me and you, is it?
No, it's not.
All right, so, but yeah, I love fabric, I love quilts, and I don't have near enough.
Well, I think it's interesting that none of the quilts you showed us you called a crazy quilt. I was for a crazy quilt.
Yes, no, I've never really cared for a crazy quilt.
Was that what you would call people back in the day that didn't have any money, so they just pieced together whatever they could?
Yeah,
and did
pretty much. I
crazy-
know it's most of the time like in strips and just
Yeah.
all over the place, and they're all stitched. And it's not stitched together. It's like zigzagged on top of it, but yeah. Absolutely. Miss Nancy Jo Cox makes a lot of those.
I have we're up to about 4 or 5 quilts now that we have in the archives that have been donated. We have a tie quilt that was made of ties from the 1960s and 70s. But we have 3 signature quilts where people have either stitched names
Uh-huh.
or handwritten, back in the day, names on quilts. And so, no, I admire the work because I can't do that.
Well, it is a lot of time and effort. It doesn't, I don't care if you're making it as a group, if you're making it yourself. You know, there's just no way for me to express how it makes you feel when there's something like this that you put together and then you look at that and you say, I did that. I did that.
It makes you feel accomplished.
Exactly, and so there are a lot of ladies my age, maybe a little bit younger, definitely older, that are still quilting. But my goal is to try to get younger folks involved. And I've succeeded in doing that somewhat, and I hope, I have a class going on right now with a lot of younger folks in it, and I hope that they love it as much as I do. I have 18 in a night class, which is a little much, but we're getting it done. If we can just get rid of this weather. And then 10 during the day. But now, back in the fall, I did the same thing. And I had 10 at night, and out of that 10, I had one of the young girls, and I say young, she's 40, but she's young to me. Anyway, that didn't really care for it. Everybody else was just, carried away, wanting to do more. But the one thing that I do find that is so discouraging is they want instant gratification. And this is not something you snap your fingers and it happens, even though we've got all these tools anymore that make our lives so much easier than our ancestors had it. But yes, they want that instant gratification. So, anyway, that's all I got. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, we do. How do you store them?
How do I store
How
them?
do you display them?
I do not store them like you are supposed to. I'll be real honest. I have an old china cabinet, and I don't fold them. I kind of roll them, so to speak. And then I have a curio cabinet that's wider and deeper than I have them in there. I have them in baskets. I have them on a ladder. But yeah, the proper way that they say to store them is to roll them and put them in a pillowcase. Now, I want mine, I'm proud of mine, I want them seen,
Yeah.
And again, I don't care how primitive they are or how ratty they are. Now, I do have a few that are really ratty. I wouldn't have brought that butterfly down there, but it was my grandmother's, so that's the reason why I brought it. But I have an overall bob and a sunbonnet Sue that my mother made back in the 70s. And I used that for years and years as a kid, and it is, the applique is coming off, so I keep it folded inside, with the backing showing. But yeah, it's like, but that's what I understand, unless something has changed, is the proper way is to roll them, put them in a pillowcase.
Yeah.
Take them down every 6 months to a year and wash them. And then you'll get mixed reviews about how to wash them. Some folks will say they need to be put in the bathtub, and just kind of soak them and then lay them on a sheet flat outside in the sun to dry 'em. And then others are like, I put mine in the washing machine and I put it in the dryer. All I can suggest is if it's really bright colors, when you wash them the first few times, is use color catchers when you wash them. And because a lot of your reds and oranges fade.
What are color catchers?
Well, you can get them on Amazon, you know you can get anything on Amazon. But, like Shout makes them, they kinda look like a dryer sheet, but you put them in the washer. And then there are other things that you can buy too that are like that. I bought this solution and I do not remember the name of it. You can also wash it, but it's like a dye set. But, and some people, like their red fabric, some people wash their fabric before they ever start cutting, and then others don't. And some have had good luck one way and not the other. So, you know, it's just kind of personal preference and what you have the time to do and want to do.
Now, you were talking earlier about taking a quilt to a group of ladies that quilted it. Is that still something that is around here that you can do that, or?
Yes, actually, well, I say yes. There are quilt guilds. There's not one in Houston County. There's quilt guilds too, I think, in Montgomery County that they still do that as a group.
Okay.
But now, we used to have a group. My mom actually was one of the ones that started it, that quilted at the senior center. And Miss Norma Dalton was one of them, and they went up there every Monday and quilted. And Miss Inez Dyer was one, Miss Norma Dalton, Miss Carol Kaiser, who else? There was a Stanfield too, and I don't know if it was Stanfield or Stanfield, but I cannot think of her first name that was up there when Mom and them were up there. But yeah, they used to do a lot of work.
If you're curious, you could call the local senior center and ask them. I believe they still meet on Mondays in the basement.
They don't do it anymore.
They have quit.
Yeah, it was Robin Six and Carol Kaiser
Yes.
and Miss Norma. And Miss Norma was kind of the, I don't want to say the brains of the, and she was the one. And Miss Norma's in her 90s now. So they just kind of stopped.
We have had some talented ladies, and I don't mean to exclude the gentlemen, but ladies in the past that have done quilting around here. Gina mentioned our mother. Our mother was very artistic at anything she wanted to do, and her quilts are magnificent, and we're fortunate to have some of them. But there was a lady that lived on McMillan Street, Miss Thelma Baggett. Do you remember Miss Thelma? Jessie Baggett's wife. Mother trusted Miss Thelma to piece her quilts, not to piece them, to
Quilt
put them
them.
together, to quilt them. So she'd send her quilt tops up there. And you've alluded to the quilting sawhorses, and we grew up right in the middle of the dining room where she lives now. Our grandmother was an avid quilter as well, as was Mother. And the quilting racks were almost as long as that table there. And the itty bitty stitches, our grandmother, Elizabeth Winters, and our great aunt, Miss Ruby Teft, I don't know if any of you remember her, but they would get together and sit and chat and quilt. And every so often you would roll the, remember that? So, unfortunately, we didn't take the time to learn.
Well, I can tell you a better one than that, and I can't believe I'm gonna tell on myself. But when Mama was piecing, when Mama pieced this quilt, she had the quilting frames down in the basement. And she said, Gina, I need you to go downstairs and quilt. I think it's only right that you quilt on that. quilts on. And I was like, okay. So I went down there, I stayed about 10 minutes. So, you know, then I come back up and I went, I'm done. She goes, you have got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, I'm done. And you know, hindsight's 20/20, and I wasn't interested either. And oh, how I wish I had been. Because I know that Mom would always say, whenever they get a new quilt to do up at the senior center, that she didn't want to put it in unless Miss Norma was up there. Because Miss Norma, she said, just had a very fluid, easy way to put it in the frames. And I'm sure it was difficult because you gotta be sure that there are no wrinkles in that, you know. And Kate, the girl that I was talking about down there, she said her grandmother always had her crawl up under the quilting frames and look and be sure there were no pleats in her back.
And that it's pulled as tight as you can get it.
Exactly.
But now, I have made a quilt top. I don't mean to say that I didn't, because again, we came from a family of seamstresses and quilters and what have you. I was about 9, and I made just the simple 9 patch. And my experience there is I ran my finger in under the needle between the dog feet and the pressure foot. So I remember that. I did finish that though.
I think I had a student that did that too, but thank goodness she didn't do it when she was up there. She was at home.
Well, I haven't done it since.
Yes.
And another thing that I regret, not only not learning to quilt, is Mother could tat. You know what tatting is?
Yeah.
That is a lost art.
Yeah, that definitely is. But yeah, we have it so good today, comparatively speaking, to
Do you
when.
still have any ladies that are, I won't say old fashioned, but they think that the hand quilting is better than the machine quilting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel that way.
Do you?
I have a long arm, but I feel that way.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do it. I might do a pillow top, you know, like this right here. Because they are, I just can't, I just remember how difficult it was, those few stitches that I put in there, down there, because you almost have to go completely straight down and then straight back up. You can't, you know, and the needles that you quilt with are little bitty short things, and I'm sure for that purpose.
I remember my mother, because my mother was a quilter, and she had the racks and everything, and she would sit with one hand up here and one hand under here, and she was here and up, and you never saw this hand that was underneath.
And they were fast.
Oh, they were fast, yeah.
They were very fast. But
You know,
anyway, yeah.
Gina, there's some people that just can't quit. And Mom put me, Brenda, and Carolyn, we was gonna learn to quit. We wasn't gonna leave that day, we knew. Well, when they got ready to go have lunch, Mama told Brenda, said, now Brenda, while Linda's in the kitchen, you go in there and take them stitches out. So let them stay in my quilt. So when I came back, I said, well, where did my stitches? Mama said, you didn't do very good.
That may have happened more than we really realized. You know?
That's fun.
But
Gina,
yes.
tell them about the log cabin quilt that Terry made.
Oh, okay. This quilt actually right here belongs to Carol's grandson, Colin, which is a grandson of Terry and Freddie Lyles. Terry was one of my students too, and about the last 9 months before she passed away, she and I spent every Wednesday together pretty much. Well, Terry was making all of her grandchildren quilts for Christmas, and she had all of them pieced, but the older 2 girls, Bronson's daughters. But anyway, she had this quilt pieced, and on the Wednesday before she passed away, she had these panels that she wanted to go in here. And the panels weren't the same size. They were, I think, 1/4 of an inch taller than they were wide. So that wasn't gonna work. We were gonna have to trim them down. But she had all of these log cabin pieces pieced. And in fact, she sent me a picture on Sunday morning rather, of another quilt, a square that she had pieced. But she passed away and this was the one that she had everything for, but didn't have it together. So I put it together. Ginger called me, and it was my intention to do it anyway, but Ginger called me and I did that. So this was the last one she did. But she did all of the piecing. So, you know. But she was gung-ho. Because she made 6 from August to December.
Goodness.
She pieced 6, put 5 of those 6 together. And this was the last one. So,
We're talking about quilting with a regular sewing machine versus hand quilting.
uh-huh.
Hand piece them together, and then back then they would quilt them by hand, not these
Mhm.
sewing machines, yeah. Well, not these long arms, I mean, you had them on the frames, and,
That's why I'm
And they-
saying, they said at these quilting bees, that they would do it in a day. And that's everything. So you know how many hands were working on that? Because you can't put it, it's gotta all be together before you can put it in the frame.
and that's why they had the frame, is so you could go under and up, or you could get your little granddaughter back down there to hand them back up, or to thread the.
But yeah. And I have my grandmother's quilting frames, but Mama's mother, but I just am the owner of them. I did say before I die, if I live long enough, that I'm gonna do one by hand from beginning to end. I didn't say how big it would be. But anyway, again, I love fabric, I love quilts. There's no ugly quilt. There's no perfect quilt. Everything should be perfectly imperfect.
Gina, have you ever heard anybody say, I'm not gonna sleep under that quilt because they're too hot?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that just burnt me up.
Yes, but you know, I've got one down there that's a summer quilt. It doesn't have any batting in it. All it is your pieced front and your back.
Miss Missy made so many quilts and Mitchell did not like her quilt. And I didn't know it till after we got married, you know. I'm not sleeping under that quilt, it's too hot.
And a lot of the time too, that's another thing too. They put blankets in them. I have seen people put sheets in them, and use sheets for a back as well. They're not as heavy. And now all the cotton battings that you see, there are different weights of cotton batting now. You know, so yeah, so you can get more breathable, or you can get them even heavier. But there's all kinds of stuff now that these ladies did not have years ago.
Was there a standard before they started offering sizes?
They're
For your
usually, yeah, pretty much there was, and it was pretty much always like, we would consider a small full size, like almost a 3/4.
Yeah,
Because you know, they used to have a lot of 3/4 beds.
yeah.
And, but now, you know, we have kings and California kings and, but
Well,
yeah.
I meant the batting
Oh,
itself was,
the batting.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and I can't off the top of my head tell you the weight of it. But there's cotton batting and there's polyester batting.
No,
If
cotton.
you find a quilt that's kind of puffy looking, and I really don't think I have any that have polyester batting in it, not any of these. but this one might have. But it's a lightweight polyester, if it is. But yeah, there's like warm and cozy and, yeah, all kinds of stuff like that now. And I really couldn't tell you what the weight of the standard is. Because I like to feel of it. It's kind of like I like to feel in my fabric. And if it doesn't feel good to my hand, I'm thinking it's not gonna feel good against your body. So,
And Aunt Irene's in the winter, she had so many quilts on her beds that you couldn't turn over.
Gary Dean was just talking about sleeping under 3.
Yeah.
Was it a feather bed?
Probably so. It
Well,
was
you really
pretty
couldn't
sad.
turn over if you were in a feather bed and had all its quilts on top of
The house
it.
probably had holes in the top of it, in the floor.
Yeah,
That's
so,
why we had 5 quilts.
well, thank you all for having me. I've enjoyed it. I hope that I didn't ramble. That was my fear, you know, but anyway.
I brought some quilts. Would you tell me about them if I go get them? They're Houston County quilts that were my grandmother's.
Sure.
I went
I
out.
would love to see those.
Bring mine too.
Okay.
I really need a quilter.